Week 3 of the college football slate features one of the most passionate rivalries in the SEC as the top-ranked defending champs travel to the Swamp to take on the unbeaten Gators. Even though the Tide lost a record-tying 6 players in the first round of this year's draft, they haven't skipped a beat. Our Brady Quinn says Bryce Young is going to be a 2-time Heisman winner, and he got off to a great start in blowing out the U.
Bryce gets it, backpedals onto the end zone, loads up, looks long. He's got Williams behind the defense. Jamison makes the grab at midfield. 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Alabama, 94 yards.
And Alabama hasn't lost to Florida since 2008 when Tim Tebow led the Gators to their second national championship in 3 years. And for Florida to put up a good fight against Bama, they're going to need great play out of the quarterback position. But Dan Mullen isn't quite ready to make the change from Emory Jones to Anthony Richardson, not just yet.
We have 2 really good quarterbacks. You'll see both of them play every single game.
While Jones hasn't quite lived up to the hype in his first 2 starts, the electric playmaking ability Richardson has displayed so far is undeniable.
Oh, my! That's a 74-yard touchdown run by Anthony Richardson.
Can the Gators shock the world and pull off the massive upset in the Swamp? Or will Saban and the Crimson Tide make it 8 in a row against Florida? We're in for a big-time clash in Gainesville on CBS.
Thank you very much, Chris Hassel. The SEC on CBS schedule kicks off with a great game in Gainesville. Number 1 Alabama travels to the Swamp to take on number 11 Florida, national champion versus SEC East champion. With the Crimson Tide more than a 2-touchdown favorite, according to Caesars Sportsbook. All right, let's welcome in Barrett Sallee with a look at Florida today, and then we're going to tackle the Crimson Tide in depth tomorrow. So let's start with the Gators here. Chris had mentioned sort of the QB controversy out there in Gainesville, but how do you approach the Emory Jones, Anthony Richardson debate?
I'll tell you what I would do is I would start Anthony Richardson as long as that hamstring is healthy. He's the better quarterback, and the reason is pretty simple. Against Alabama, turnovers get you killed, and Emory Jones 2 picks in each of the first 2 games. That will turn a game sideways against Alabama in a hurry. Now, Dan Mullen has not really given Anthony Richardson a lot through the air. So the question comes down to, do you trust Emory Jones, a guy who you know is going to hand the ball over to Alabama, or do you trust Anthony Richardson, a guy who really hasn't had the chance to prove it one way or the other? The answer is the latter. And so if it was me, the choice would be simple. For Dan Mullen likes to prove that he's the smartest man in every room, and Emory Jones is his hand-picked guy. From the time he got to that job in Florida, he targeted Emory Jones. Emory Jones came with him from Mississippi State. He wanted to go to Mississippi State. He came with them to Florida. Dan's a prideful guy, so he's going to stick with Emory Jones as long as he possibly can. You're going to see Anthony Richardson in the 3rd series, and then beyond that, who knows? But I think that's the wrong play. For me, it's Anthony Richardson all the way as long as he's healthy.
All right, you are going with the upside if you were Dan Mullen calling the shots for this weekend's game. If I were to ask you, Barrett, to write up key topics to upset Alabama from a Florida perspective, what would that be?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is taking care of the football. We just talked about how, Emory Jones turns the ball over. Those turnovers turn games sideways against Alabama in a hurry. I've seen Alabama play countless times in my life, probably over 50. And every single year since Saban got there, 1 pick turns the game sideways. It can be 14-0 in the 2nd quarter, and then bam, by halftime it's 31-0. That's just how Alabama operates. And they do it through turnovers. So they got to protect the football. That's number 1. Number 2, they've got to get pressure on Bryce Wilson. Todd Grantham is a gambler as a defensive coordinator. He will bring 9, 10, 11. He could bring 15 players on the quarterback if they let him. And so Bryce Young making his 3rd start. Yeah, he's been great for his first 2. Brady Quinn, our colleague, even said he's going to win multiple Heisman trophies. But it is still his 3rd start, and it is on the road in a hostile environment. So they got to heat him up. They're going to have to get pressure into his face, make him make quick decisions on the road in a hostile environment. If he's comfortable back there, he's going to pick you apart. And last thing is red zone touchdowns. I can't tell you how many times I've watched games and thought, oh, God, you're kicking a field goal on the 5-yard line. That is not going to win football games. You have to get in the red zone, and you have to score touchdowns, and that means Dan Mullen's going to have to take some risks. Yeah, the book might say, oh, it's 3rd and 10, and you're on the 15, you kick the field goal. No, don't do that. You got to go for it. You cannot beat Alabama if you're settling for field goals. So for Dan Mullen, he's going to have to be a gambler. And look, he likes to do that sometimes. That's fine. But you have to go into this game with that as your game plan. If not, you're going to get blown out.
Those are 3 keys there for an upset from Barrett Sallee and the Florida perspective. Before I let you go, let's talk about the coach, right? We talk about him in the same class as Chip Kelly and Scott Frost. What's at stake here for Dan Mullen, who's trying to build that team and get to the Nick Saban level?
Well, it's a weather vane, right? It's a chance to know where you stand. It's a chance to know how far along that program is, because you're sitting here looking at Alabama, and they've had massive turnover in terms of the offensive side of the football. So in theory, if you're Dan Mullen, this is year 4. You're an offensive genius. You're supposed to be that team that can hang with Alabama, that can put up 40 points when it absolutely needs to, not just when it wants to. So you saw that last year. They got down into a big hole in the SEC championship game, and then suddenly clawed themselves back in. Now, part of that was because Alabama kind of put it in neutral a little bit defensively, but you have to build off that momentum if you're Dan Mullen, because you should not be that far behind Alabama in year 4. Dan Mullen was hired to build that Mississippi State offense that was thrived with Dak Prescott. So far at Florida, it's been hit or miss. Every few games you see them go through a lull, but you've seen their promise. You're going to have to hang with Alabama. If not, I think it'll be clear that this Florida team is light years behind the Crimson Tide.
Good stuff, Barrett. We'll check in with you tomorrow from the Crimson Tide perspective and your pick against the spread. Want to let everybody know about the Cover 3 podcast, talking about everything college football, getting you ready for the weekend. One note here that was interesting about the Alabama-Florida dynamic, more so the Gators. First time in 19 years, the Swamp will welcome the #1 ranked team in the country. The game is sold out. The last time was 2002 when #1 Miami came to town.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.